Today our special guest is Andrea Rademeyer, a visionary leader who has turned challenges into extraordinary opportunity. Some 30 years ago, she founded a one-woman venture, building it into Ask Afrika, the ultimate insights authority on the continent. Under her leadership, Ask Afrika created some of the region's most influential benchmarking tools, including the Ask Afrika Orange Index, a trusted standard for measuring customer experience and service excellence across industries, including the emotional component of the customer journey. Andrea and her team have earned numerous accolades for their pioneering work in research, data-driven marketing, and consumer insight. Throughout her journey, Andrea has embodied the very essence of ethic and purpose-driven leadership, guided by integrity, a commitment to meaningful societal impact, and a passion for helping others make well-informed decisions. I'm proud to have her on my show today because she is not only my cousin, but stands as a powerful example of what women in leadership can achieve.
I must say, I think to a large extent, sometimes being an entrepreneur is a force in yourself which you can't really resist. So you get pushed towards it, and if you are aware of your energy and you open to it, you just start it. So I essentially started thinking, now I can work better, faster. I started studying in 1986, and those were very, very turbulent times in South Africa, as you very well know. And as young students, we did ask ourselves, what were we going to do to improve things in the country? And I was surrounded by teachers, doctors, who all had an obvious path of how they would support society. And I then thought, well, the only thing I can do is create employment. So when I was germinating this idea of starting a business, I thought that would be an honorable thing to do. Creating employment, as well as at that point already going against the common sense that successful business people are by nature unethical. And at that point, I was still quite a strong or convinced Christian, and I thought, no, that's not necessary. It's possible to do good and to be good. And I think this whole package together then made me choose to start a business.
And you had quite a few problems getting financing, I remember you saying.
So those were days which one can't imagine have changed so quickly in a country. But yes, I was barely 27 at that point, and no bank would allow me to open a bank account without the signature of a male, preferably my husband, because I just got married. And I refused to do this, and happened to meet people and told them about this, and they referred me to an old wizened banker who said, I hear you. If you bring me a contract, I will give you whatever you need. And I brought him my first client contract, and he set me up. And that was more than 30 years ago now. Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Now, there's a saying that what doesn't destroy you makes you much stronger. And you had numerous challenges building your business over the past 30 years. I know some of them, I don't know all of them. But what was your biggest challenge?
I think, Rhino, wanting to be a very successful business person, wanting to be a perfect mother, and wanting to be a perfect spouse. Now, I am all for being ambitious, but setting actually impossibly high standards to myself without asking for support or help has been something I advise women to do differently, because it's a it's very hard. It's a huge challenge when you weigh up a marriage to your business, when you weigh up children to your business. And one has to. And those are very difficult decisions. And I remember as a very young entrepreneur, not being able to join parties, not being able to have a rich social life as I'd had before. And in effect, losing a lot of friends who became tired of my not coming. So one does have challenges, and some you deal elegantly with, and others you don't. But as you say, it's good I believe it's very good for a human to suffer in some ways, which is a wild statement, because one can't choose your suffering. But I think realizing that life is unfair. No one has a right to anything. So just do your best and go for the best, and it will be good. But having difficulties and overcoming them are a gift, not in the moment, but afterwards, because it forces you to rally your resources and to learn more about yourself, firstly, because the first challenge is yourself, always. It's your mental voice, it's how you access your own energy and your own purity of thought. If you run away, if you let yourself run away with your thoughts, you are probably going to take worse decisions.
Indeed, especially when you're under stress, you often make the worst decisions. Our mindset obviously is a crucial key to success.
Yeah.
And you just mentioned this image that is so put out there in the world. You have to be perfect in all fields. Success means this and this, but life, as we know, is a constant cycle of ups and downs.
I think appreciating the ups as opposed to complaining about the downs has been something I've tried to do. And there are so many ups. If you just consciously look for them all around you. And yeah, it's a good habit, because it is a habit. The way we think is a habit. So if you and self-awareness and looking at yourself is also a habit. And I notice that when I get too involved in the mechanics of my life, and I am a workaholic, so I adore working, I adore getting involved. But when I haven't looked at myself or taken care of just grounding myself, it's not good for me or for people around me. So I've become much better at seeing or understanding when I'm under stress. And I also took a decision long ago that if I feel stressed in the slightest, I will not make a decision. So don't take decisions when you're not feeling great. It's always possible to postpone them.
That's really good advice.
Yeah. And generally I'm all fire and want to close things quickly and deal with an email once and not twice and all of that. But don't make decisions under duress. I mean, sometimes you have to, but just try not to.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, with regards to decisions, very few things in life can't be changed. If you've made a bad decision, most of the time you can say, I'm sorry, it was a bad decision. I've changed my mind, or whatever it is. And one shouldn't expect to make the right decision every single time.
Yes, now that's an important issue if we look at leadership quality. Few leaders accept the responsibility that they do make mistakes. I mean, we are all humans after all. Now, what in your view defines good leadership, now irrespective of being a man or a woman?
I have seen fantastic leaders who are completely different to how I am. And I think the important thing is to be congruent. In other words, or congruent is the right pronunciation. In other words, be the best of what you are. Before that, know yourself. Keep investing in yourself to get feedback, because I think oftentimes leaders become so isolated and people want to applaud. They don't want to give you negative feedback. For many leaders, the negative feedback is a bad financial result or employee resigning. But the process leading that is oftentimes a isolated process, because as a leader, one doesn't get sufficient feedback. So it's very important that one tries to have one or two trusted voices who you can say to, look, I don't know. This is my perspective. What do you think? But to most importantly, to be aware of yourself, to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, what you should absolutely not touch, where you need somebody else, and when to rest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very aware that leadership in a smaller organization is very different to leadership in a listed company, or Bill Gates, managing thousands of employees across hundreds of countries. So you need to also think what you are reflecting, because your leadership energy very much and completely influences the energy of your organization, whatever that is. So you need to know that and take accountability for it. It's tempting to say, oh God, this new generation, oh, these youngsters or whatever. It's not very helpful, is it?
No. Now let's get to your teams. I've had the opportunity, of course, to have an inside look into your company, and what I really admired was your choice of people, the right people for your teams. Now, obviously, also sometimes you have to make difficult decisions to let people go.
It's probably been the hardest part of my career, when you see, or when you've lost trust. So I like to work with trust. And again, back to your previous question, I'm not a great manager. I don't want to police people. I get so bored. I don't want to check what people are doing. So I need to lead people. I can't manage them. However, when you lead people, there needs to be a trust relationship. So I am always, I try to protect trust, because it's the most precious, it's a treasure in a company. And I've had to exit a very dear colleague, but we had a trust breakdown. And I couldn't critique his work at all, or his person, or his character. And it was just that there was an incident and I felt I couldn't trust him. And so that's important for me, but I am very lucky in that I have tenured employees around me who are far more than employees. They feel like company partners and life partners in many ways, because we've seen the worst of each other. And we've carried on, and we've had the resilience to carry through. The difficult part is when you're working with a trusted person like this, and the company changes, and there seems to be a mismatch between what the company needs and what this person might at that point be willing to offer or capable to offer. And those are the toughest times, where it's my job to coach them and grow them and keep giving hope, right? And sometimes I'm good and sometimes I'm not. But I think the difference between a company of our size and maybe a listed entity, which we are not, is that when somebody goes and works for Capitec one of the most successful companies in South Africa. They work for the brand and they associate with the brand. When somebody comes to work for Ask Afrika, they come for me. So those are two different things. And the difference is that as a leader, I need to be trustworthy. I need to earn that trust every single day. In order to be able to make tough decisions so I'm thinking of COVID, where it was the first time we retrenched a few people, and I had to say, just stay with me, just trust me, this is the right thing. And of course, sometimes it might not have been the right thing. It's trust and I think authenticity and honesty to be able to say, by the best of my thinking and gut feel, I think this is what we need to do. And to also sometimes, as a leader, you need a range of skills. And sometimes you need to be autocratic, even though it might not be your natural preference. And in my life, it definitely isn't a daily or monthly thing. But yeah, you need to be flexible to have different styles, depending on the situation.
Mm-hmm. Now, does being autocratic fit together with empathy?
I can't see it. So it needs to be So in my life, in my company, I can only be autocratic if there's a complete crisis. And I can't actually remember or recall a situation where I was autocratic, but because my preference is still to explain and give the why. And that's, of course, not what autocracy is. Autocracy, in my mind, is oftentimes nearly erratic and doesn't make complete sense because the power taken is in the person, not in the principle or not in the purpose. And at Ask Afrika, we work towards a bigger purpose. So it would be jarring if you inserted autocracy into a purpose-led organization.
Mm-hmm. Now let's look at more the overall global situation we're in at the moment. There's a big political narrative going on, appealing to emotions. We're seeing it all over the world, trend toward political extremism, an appeal to feeling and emotion. Now, your company is based on science and data. How does science and data confront that challenge?
So it's interesting you say this because just today, Serena and I were going through results on brand identity on a benchmark for banks. And it was very interesting to see that the banks that do well and the winning bank actually has a emotional connect, whereas the banks that do poorer have a functional connect. So in other words, how quickly do I answer your phone? What does my product look like, etc. But the winning brands and winning companies typically care for individuals. Now, I think we make a thinking error if we think that or let me just say populist leaders appeal to emotion, because I think they actually appeal to identity, not to emotion. They never pretend to care. They never talk individually. They're more like mafia bosses or godfathers is the way they work. But in a society where there's a lot of insecurity, because we are confronted with climate change out of anybody's control, because we are confronted with identities that are changing and fluid. And so from our perspective, we think there's a lot more, it's identity politics. It's about the what. And if a president or leader tells you what you are, then you stop caring about the why. So that would be my observation. So If you look at the populist and increasingly autocratic and erratic leaders, it's fake emotions. It's not authentic emotions. If you look at the winner of this year's Peace Prize, there's authenticity. So I think the challenge we have as a society is to actually start feeling again. And it's a challenge because feeling requires a safe area. But what erratic leaders do is they take away the safety. They give you identity, but they take away the safety. And when you don't have safety, you won't reconsider your identity. You won't reconsider your feeling. You won't reconsider anything that matters to you deeply.
Yeah, it's basically surrendering your responsibility to someone else.
And humanity has had it before, surrendering your identity to a religion or to a political party. And I believe in many ways the ANC in South Africa, for example, is more a church than a political party. And the principle of churches has often in the past been that if you make the community suffer, they are unwilling to give it up because they've suffered for it. It's the same principle that applies for long marriages. You've suffered so much, why do you want to give it up now?
Exactly.
And that's what makes change so difficult and so traumatic.
Now, there's a difference, of course, between religion, church, and spirituality. I know that you're a very spiritual person. What role has spirituality, self-development played in your decision-making in your life?
I think it's the most important part of my life. And I think completely accountable to, so you can call it in leadership literature, you can say be a net contributor, be a high integrity company, because all of these are of soul, but said in a business terminology. But I simply believe that one needs to be light, one needs to be clean, you need to do good, you need to attract, don't chase. And at the end of the day, I think it's crucial that I use my privilege with awareness and accountability. And spirituality or spiritual practice reminds me of that every day.
Do you have a particular practice that you might want to recommend to our listeners?
So I like meditating every day. So I spend probably an hour a day meditating. I like doing yoga. I like walking. I need to be in nature. And that's what works for me. And then I suppose all round, I like to drink a lot of clean water. I like to drink a lot of herbal teas, and I don't like eating animals.
Now, you've had some almost near-death experiences in your life. I remember that knife attack some years ago that was really very traumatic. You've had some really serious health challenges. How has that changed your life?
It's changed my life a lot because when you think you have an opportunity to exit life, it's overstated, but you do assess what you value most. And I think these experiences have been a gift in that they've made me very aware of how I adore my children and how I try to live a clean life and not to have baggage and not to have any gray areas, let me put it that way.
Now, what I've seen in your whole biography, I've known you since childhood, obviously. Your philosophy of being in service.
Yes.
I think that is really one key aspect that defines an average entrepreneur to a very successful entrepreneur. You mentioned it at the beginning of our conversation that your whole motivation when you started your career was to create jobs. Looking back to that Andrea in 1995 that started her business, what would you tell her today?
It's a difficult thing, Rhino, because I do think it's important to make mistakes. And I made a lot of mistakes, and I think those shaped me and formed me. So I wouldn't have wanted to do anything differently, except maybe say that looking back, I do realize that with the initial success, when I look back, I think I was arrogant for a while, which is embarrassing when I look back on it. But that too is a learning curve. To consider what do you do with this privilege which you have. And success, of course you work for it. I work incredibly hard. But it's also a privilege. And what do you do? What do you do with this? What do you do with your access to opportunities? And yeah, I think if there's one thing I might have said, it would have been to get support earlier. You know, it was hard for me to have to ask for help. So I always had a coach, but that simple thing of asking for support is a very hard thing for an entrepreneur, or at least it was for me. And that then escalates in your life and creates health issues, etc. So one needs to maybe ask for help, be comfortable with asking for help.
Yeah, what I've realized in all the years I've been working in companies is that burnout always results when there's an incongruence with life purpose and with life
Yeah,
vision, and
yeah,
where the soul goes into rebellion and more or less retreats into
yeah,
exhaustion.
yeah, yeah. So exhaustion, hibernation is a trauma response, and that's one thing which I think a lot of CEOs and leaders suffer from, where with too much hard work and too little, call it self-care, call it self-awareness, they stop feeling because it saves time. And yeah, it's I think it's a dangerous zone.
Mhm. Now, what legacy would you want to leave at some point when you say, well, I've done enough?
So Ask Africa's purpose is to create useful science in Africa. Now, the challenge we have is that nobody expects, or global companies often expect bad process in Africa, and don't want to even pay for great quality and for science. And I'm very much hoping that by our unassailable data quality and excellent thinking, what we supply and what we demonstrate is that Africa is innovative. Africa has premium companies. Africa has premium people, and that gives me a lot of joy. And I'm really hoping that that's our legacy.
What's your message for women in leadership in particular?
I would say that be a woman. Don't try to be a man.
That's a good
There's,
one.
you know, it's fantastic being a woman. I mean, it's wonderful to be a woman. It's tough because you have these different roles when you have children and you get married. But don't try and be a man. Don't wear black suits and white blouses. What's that about? It's unnecessary.
Well, Andrea, we could go talking for much longer. I really want to acknowledge you for being such a great example, in particular for your two great daughters who've been on a great journey. I've seen them develop, and you're such a great mother and example, not only for your daughters, but also for your staff. And thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Rhino. I'll really appreciate. And wind to your sails.